In 1993, Tim Burton released a movie that pretty much defined everything special about him as a storyteller, The Nightmare Before Christmas. With Burton being one of the darkest and most morbid, but also whimsical and heartfelt filmmakers in the world, this film demonstrates that quality in arguably its purest form with Jack Skellington. Through him, we see that just as we, the audience, are strangely drawn to the scary and twisted, the scary and twisted are often just as drawn to us. And we also learned that if you're ever burned out with the things you love, trying something new that excites you, even if it doesn't work out, can be exactly what you need to reignite the passion for your true calling, which is honestly a beautiful message that doesn't get explored very often. The stop motion animation also makes for some of the best visuals in any Burton film, which is saying a hell of a lot. The way the film's characters and sets are made with clearly real-life materials, but not quite the right ones as they realistically would be, gives the film a slightly uncanny and creepy look. Except when it has to look bright and welcoming, which it also pulls off extremely well. Top all that off with songs that range from menacing to melancholy to wondrous and triumphant, and you've got a haunting and magical film that serves as two holiday classics for the price of one. It's not a perfect film. The story is exceedingly simple to the point where the movie is just under 80 minutes, and personally I think even that is pushing it. But it's still an endearing classic that is Tim Burton through and through. Except, not entirely. People sometimes joke about the fact that, despite his name being in the title, Tim Burton's role was not as major as you might think.
From visionary director Tim Burton. From writer Tim Burton? With music and lyrics by Tim Burton? Tim Burton's The Nightmare Before Christmas.
Personally, I don't think it's that misleading of a title. The guy's fingerprints are all over this movie, even if it was literally built by other people's fingers. I think the fact that he didn't write or direct it is such a surprise for some people says it all. And plus, the story was his idea. You can't get much more important than that. But that doesn't mean that Tim Burton as a director doesn't have any animation to his name. Over a decade later, we get to see what Burton can do when given the reins on an animated project with 2005's Corpse Bride. Now, to be fair, Tim Burton only served as co-director on this film, as he kind of had his hands full at the time with Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
Good morning, Starshine. The Earth says hello.
A much more valuable use of his time, I'm sure you'll agree. But like The Nightmare Before Christmas, this is still very much his vision, as confirmed by the film's other director, Mike Johnson. Tim knew where he wanted the film to go as far as the emotional tone and story points to hit. My job was to work with the crew on a daily basis and get the footage as close as possible to how I thought he wanted it. The film stars Johnny Depp and Helena Bonham Carter.
What else?
With Depp playing a man arranged to be married, but through a series of circumstances, finds himself wedded to a dead woman.
I do.
Right off the bat, there is a lot to like about this movie, starting with the happy couple. Johnny Depp's character, Victor, serves well as this bumbling, sympathetic character who is trying to do his best with the situations he finds himself in, firstly with a wedding he's clearly not prepared for, and in trying to escape a marriage with the undead.
Under different circumstances, well, who knows? But we're just too different.
Despite that though, Helena Bonham Carter's Emily manages to be pretty likable too. Her character has a tragic backstory involving her being betrayed and killed by her fiancé, and now is desperately clutching onto any hope she has of finding love. It works because neither of these two are the bad guy. Victor tries to get out of his marriage with Emily using every method from reasoning to outright abandoning her, but you understand that he's just looking for a way out of something he stumbled into so he can not only fulfill his own obligations, but get his own life back. And sure, Emily is being clingy, to put it lightly, and struggling to accept that this marriage isn't gonna work, but after being betrayed, she's understandably very intent to find her actual true love. Not to mention, she's kind, and the more these two interact, the more Victor genuinely starts to like her.
Pardon my enthusiasm.
I like your enthusiasm.
It's the classic Tim Burton approach of taking the most horrific thing you can possibly think of and making that the most likable and emotionally vulnerable character in the movie. This is something that's also captured really well in the art direction and the animation. We're first introduced to the world of the living in the film's opening scene, with everything appearing absolutely miserable and passionless. The colors are desaturated, everybody's movements are stiff and literally like clockwork, and they look dignified and high class, but in a slightly exaggerated way that comes off as imposing rather than refined. Victor sort of stands out in this regard, as while he still has the same muted color palette as everyone else, he has a much more modest design and wide-eyed innocence about him, suggesting that he's just as off-put by this world as the audience is and is stifled by it. Then you transition into the Land of the Dead, which, despite what you might expect, is actually the most lively thing we see in this film. The character designs, while still creepy, actually look more human than the living people we've seen so far. The colors are bright and vibrant and almost luminous compared to what we've seen before. The music is this upbeat, jazzy number as opposed to the opening song, which I can only describe as aggressively formal.
Every single tiny microscopic little thing must go.
And at the center of it all is Emily herself, who has this great design. It's initially horrifying, but the more you look at it, there's also a level of elegance to it, which is subdued enough that the literal corpse looks more elegant than the characters who are actively trying to appear that way.
Get those corsets laced properly. I can hear you speak without gasping.
Much like The Nightmare Before Christmas, this movie manages to embody a lot of the really great aspects of Tim Burton as a filmmaker. But also, like The Nightmare Before Christmas, the story isn't perfect, and this time around the problems are a little bit more difficult to ignore. While I think the main dynamic between Victor and Emily is pretty good, the actual events surrounding them leave a lot to be desired, particularly Victor's arranged marriage. Victor throughout the film is engaged by his parents to a young aristocrat named Victoria. His parents are doing it to increase their social status, while Victoria's parents are doing it because they need the money.
What if Victor and I don't like each other?
As if that has anything to do with marriage.
The problem is that while the movie touches on issues with the arranged marriage, i.e. the lack of say the bride and groom have in the matter, the fact that they don't even know each other, and the fact that this seems to be for the benefit of the parents exclusively, there isn't a lot that's really done with it. Victor and Victoria, despite some mild concerns, seem to be reasonably on board with marrying each other and even seem to get along decently well.
I always hoped to find someone I was deeply in love with. Silly, isn't it?
No, not at all, no.
But at the same time, their relationship isn't given a tremendous amount of development because the movie isn't about Victoria. It's sort of this awkward middle ground where they're not unhappy enough that you want to see them stand up to their parents, but they're also not in love with each other enough that you want to see them together. It's basically just relationship limbo. In fact, the movie ends with Victor and Victoria deciding they do want to be together. But if that's the case, what was the point in having the wedding seem so ominous? You're gonna marry this man you've never met and you're gonna like it! I'm gonna like it? Great, problem solved. The movie also tries to work a villain into the story with Lord Barkis, an opportunist attempting to marry Victoria for himself to inherit the fortune that he assumes her family has. It's also revealed at the end of the movie that he was Emily's fiancé and by extension the one who killed her.
I left you.
For dead.
He has an enjoyably smug design, but his role in the story is fairly pointless and he feels like he's there just for the sake of a climax. The movie ends with Barkis trying to abduct Victoria for basically no reason. Like, at this point, he knows her family's broke and he's displayed no other interest in her up until now. And also the reveal that he killed Emily isn't all that surprising. Wow, gee, Emily was killed by her fiancé and this guy implies that he killed his fiancé.
I was betrothed some years ago, but tragedy snatched my young bride away.
You know, it is rather sad that Tim Burton never got to make a third Batman movie, but I don't think we need the world's greatest detective for this one. There are also some other forgettable elements of the film, like the songs are just okay, but compared to The Nightmare Before Christmas, they don't even hold a candle. And while Johnny Depp and Helena Bonham Carter play their parts just fine, looking at some of their other work with Burton, these are somewhat more middling performances from them. The only time the voice acting ever got a memorable reaction out of me was when we were introduced to this character.
Oh, my dear, there you are.
Oh hey, that's Alfred.
I have no wish to fill my few remaining years grieving for the loss of old friends or their sons.
So, kind of a weak plot, with the characters being barely concerned about one of the main sources of conflict, and a villain whose motivation deteriorates from one-dimensional to non-existent. And like I said, The Nightmare Before Christmas was by no means a perfect movie either, and its plot wasn't exactly an ambitious tour de force. But almost every scene made the absolute most of that simple story to create one of the most defining movies of Burton's career. Corpse Bride, by comparison, doesn't hit quite as hard. Still though, it captures a lot of the style and heart that he has to offer to where it still deserves to stand alongside The Nightmare Before Christmas. And just for the sake of being semi-thorough, I'll take a quick look at the animated film that Tim Burton directed on his own, Frankenweenie. It's okay. The black and white visuals are pretty cool, along with some of the character designs like the teacher, and this girl is fucking great. The reveal of Colossus actually being tiny is really predictable, but still made me laugh because who the hell goes to the effort of mummifying a hamster and putting him in a mausoleum? The dog's name being Sparky is a fantastic pun, although I wish the movie was more focused on his relationship with Victor. Overall, it's a decent movie, but the short film from 1984 was better. Special thanks to my Patreon supporters Heather Reed, Zelda, Moon Goddesses, The Hen Rolled, Chris Spicer, Jacob K, Wasp Sen, Andrew Taylor, and Deceiver of Gods. Thank you so much for the support. If you'd like to see your name in the credits, along with early access to scripts and videos, as well as exclusive unused video thumbnails, or if you'd just like to chat with me, consider supporting me on Patreon for just $1.50 a month. The link is in the description.